Very good evening. You're watching the press preview here on Sky News this Friday evening. Joining us this evening, Conservative MEP Saad Kamal and singer and human rights lawyer, interesting mix, Karis McLarty, joining us for the first time. All that coming up in a moment. Let's first remind you of the front pages of some of those papers. Friday the 13th shakes Europe, declares The Guardian, describing the Eurozone crisis with France amongst the countries losing its top credit rating. Further downgrades likely. The Times, also leading on Europe, saying the deepening crisis may put Britain's rating at risk if the Eurozone degenerates into a full-blown recession. While the Independent calls it Black Friday for the Eurozone crisis, as first France and Austria had its credit ratings downgraded. Financial Times leading too on those downgrades, saying markets slide as investors fear the knock-on effects and the failure of the Greek bond talks, which may be even more significant. Indeed, the Telegraph has the Eurozone crisis on the front too, but features what it calls an army of unaccountable snoopers being created by town halls and private security firms to hand out fines and take photos of offenders. The Eye paper leading with a Tesco executive who sold 50,000 shares just days before a profits warning had wiped £5 billion off the value of the company. Tesco saying he did nothing wrong. Of course, he hasn't broken the law as such. Story of a British student facing a decade in a US prison is the lead for the Daily Mail. 23-year-old Paul O'Dwyer accused of listing places where film and television programmes could be downloaded for free, alleged to have broken copyright law. Hundreds of thousands of people could be paying as much as £3,000 a year extra on their pensions, says the Daily Express. And the Mirror detailing the story of a Coronation Street star calling off her £250,000 wedding, the couple blaming their hectic work schedule, according to the paper sources. They may have seen how much the wedding was also going to cost, who knows? And time to take a look at the papers in more detail. And joining us tonight, as we were saying, Saad and Karis. We've got some breaking news coming up in a moment. We'll update you about an Italian cruise ship with some 4,000 passengers on board. Just run aground off the coast of Italy. We'll get to Nick Pisa as he joins us on the line fairly shortly. But first, let's take a look at the papers full of Euro crisis on this Friday the 13th, the nightmare and Black Fridays. It's great timing for them, isn't it?
It's also great timing for those who are superstitious, isn't it, really, to sort of say they've been proven right. I think the interesting thing here is the whole issue of how the French will react, but also the issue of why was it downgraded and what does this all mean? Actually, what it simply means is that France will have to pay more to the people it borrows money from for its bonds.
And some of the papers also are reflecting that the US had its credit rating downgraded, and it seems to be doing okay at the moment.
Well, similarly by Standard & Poor's, who seem to have a great sense of the dramatic. 2 days after the Euro summit, safeguarding the Euro, comes this announcement, leaked a few hours before, so I'm sure a few people have made some money from that.
Yeah, and the other declaration they made about looking at the Eurozone economies came just after that last crisis meeting with Merkel and Sarkozy.
That's
so
right.
It is interesting timing, isn't it?
It is, and similarly, as you mentioned, in the US last year, obviously in the game of chicken on the debt ceiling, they were very quick again. And I think it does bring into question really the role of the rating agencies. And it'd be interesting to see why Moody's and Fitch have not downgraded France, and
or
what
maybe
their
it's just they haven't done
be.
so yet. Because certainly S&P were mentioning later in their various bulletins they're issuing that they've downgraded these countries because of the lack of action by the European leaders. Yeah. And a lot of economists have been saying that independently, of course.
Well, actually, the markets have actually been treated, the French debt, as downgraded anyway.
Yes.
So that's why you haven't seen the dramatic falls in the stock market.
In.
It's already been priced in. They say they're already treating French debt at AA rather than AAA, or AA plus rather than AAA. But the interesting thing about this is actually, one is the Eurozone crisis, because there's impasse. The politicians at the European level have not sorted it out. They haven't decided one way or the other, should we let Greece and other countries leave, or should we have a full fiscal union where the rich parts pay for the poor parts? Yeah. And the other thing is actually the French government hasn't got a proper austerity plan in place, which says that they are serious about tackling their economic problems.
Yeah,